Welcome to Productive Joy with Dr. Christie, where fun meets action.
Hi, friends. Welcome to Productive Joy. I am so excited to introduce you to my new friend, Laurie Maddalena. Laurie is lots of pretty cool things. She's a certified executive coach. She is a leadership development consultant. She's a keynote speaker and a darn good one. She was once, twice, 3 times on Dance Party USA. That's kind of exciting. She doesn't like cilantro or blue cheese. She loves her morning cappuccino, and in the evening, she switches to Sauvignon Blanc. No, Cabernet Sauvignon, even better. And today she's our guest on Productive Joy. Welcome, Laurie.
Thank you, Dr. Christie. Excited to be here.
We are going to have some fun without a doubt. And I am super excited to dive into all the brilliant things that you know. But by nature, people are only curious for so long. So what would you say to pique their curiosity and get them excited about today?
It is likely that if you're a leader, you are working probably more hours than you should be, and that you can be much more productive and intentional with your time so that you can really enjoy life outside of work.
Yeah, because we spend something like 90,000 hours of our lives working. And if we're not finding ways to be productive, then that's kind of a waste.
Yes.
So I love that. And I love that you use the word productivity in not busyness, right? Like, I think what you're saying is that leaders are often busy, but not necessarily productive. Am I right?
Most leaders are reacting to their day. It's like getting on a raft in the morning that just takes you and you're bouncing from thing to thing and not very intentional. And my belief is, having worked with so many leaders, that there are ways that we can be much more intentional with our time and cut down on a lot of these distractions, interruptions that take us away from our focus. And so there's very practical things we can be doing, but most leaders are not doing them.
Yeah. And I agree. And as a leader, I'm often like, okay, guys, how can we be more efficient here? What are we doing? Let's rethink this. But let's back up, because you didn't start as a coach. You started as a leader. Well, not that leaders aren't coaches. Don't let me say that wrong. But what I mean is, tell us your story that got you to this point, because something must have shifted in your world that said, I think I could help other people.
Yes. So my first leadership experience was right out of college. I was working for an insurance company. And about a year into that role, my manager said, we're going to hire someone and that person will be reporting to you. And a few weeks later, we hired a woman named Pat, and I had zero leadership training. No one sent me to a class. No one even sat down and said, here's what our expectations are. Here's what you should do differently. And so I thought my job was just to answer her questions and, give her direction. And it wasn't until several years later, moving into a credit union where I worked in human resources, that I started to see that leadership took a lot more. There was, and again, no training. I had to go out and get some of that training myself. And so through learning a lot of those skills, I ended up, fast forward, becoming the VP of HR and creating those kind of programs for our managers, for our leaders, so that they could be prepared before they move into a role. I think this is a practice that we still do. It's very common in organizations to promote your technical superstar and maybe not promoting the right people even into leadership roles.
Right, because we assume you were really good at sales. Now you're going to be the sales manager. Yeah, that does not translate. Those are very different skills. So I don't know if you've ever listened to Ed Miley. He has bazillions of podcasts and millions of listeners. His quote that I use all the time that applies to what you just said is, we are best equipped to help the person we used to be. And so it sounds to me like you got no training, you weren't equipped to help Pat originally, but then you realized, oh, wait, there are things that can be done that are replicable that I should be doing. Now I'm creating that for other people. What a beautiful transition into recognizing that you had something worth sharing. So what took you from VP, big company, VP of HR, I'm in charge, to I want to do this for people outside of here? How did you make that transition?
Yeah, it was actually an interesting transition because it wasn't planned. I had taken a coaching certification course outside of work while I was still working at the credit union, with the intention of bringing that internally to our managers, of teaching them coaching skills and how to build a coaching culture, which at that time was pretty progressive. This wasn't a normal thing that we were talking about in organizations like we are today. And through that, I met some people who had their own businesses, who were making an impact in a bigger way. And one of them said to me one time, why don't you start your own business?
Sure.
I was pretty risk averse, so I didn't think that I would want to do that. But some changes in the company and just feeling like the values didn't fit anymore, I decided to leave and start my company. And I'm so glad I did. I mean, it's been 18 years and I feel privileged. I feel honored to be able to work with so many leaders and organizations.
That's awesome. Okay, so what advice would you have? Because our listeners are leaders who want to create more productive joy. And that can come in a lot of different forms, right? They might be leading their home, or they might be leading a Fortune 500 company, or anywhere in between. But what advice would you have for somebody who's right on that cusp of, do I stay where I am, or do I take this risk and go out on my own? What would you say to that person to help them to make that decision?
I think it's really important to understand your own values and if that's something that really aligns with who you are. So I said I'm pretty risk averse. I've built this business organically over the years, and I could have grown a lot faster by adding, 20 more hours to my week, but I valued having more of a standard work week. So I think, what would that look like for you? Are you willing to be intentional and put in that work? Because it often takes time. It takes several years to really build that up. And it can be very rewarding, but it's often looks better on the outside than, the beginning stages of building a business. But if you feel like you're called to make more of that bigger impact and to be able to work with more leaders, then it's a fantastic way to do that.
Well, and there's power in it, right? But it is scary, and it is something that you have to set some guardrails and boundaries around, because you could work, maybe not 24 hours a day, because eventually you have to sleep, but 18 anyway. And if you are in that dead run all the time, you're not giving your best anywhere. And
That's
that
right.
doesn't provide what you're really trying to get to, which is that work-life balance is a terrible word. That work-life synergy.
Right. And I talk a lot about in my work that not everyone's meant to be a leader. And I really believe that also for entrepreneurs. Not everyone's meant to be an entrepreneur. I have people reach out to me sometimes who want to start their own business, and I'm very encouraging of people, but I do think it's something that you have to go in eyes wide open. There are certain skills that it takes of perseverance and daily work and consistency that require to be successful in that kind of role.
Yeah, I would say tenacity needs to make its way on
Yes.
this too. Doggedness. Yeah, all of that.
Resilience.
Yeah, I think we could probably go on and on. So what's the biggest thing that you have learned over those 18 years that you think our Productive Joy audience needs to hear? It could be personal, it could be professional, but what's the thing that you're like, yeah, that is worth repeating?
I really think intention is, and I know that's your word of the year.
Yes, I love that.
I love
Yeah.
that. Intention can be applied in so many aspects of our life to help us be more productive, be more joyful. But in a leadership role, many of us were taught in a more traditional environment to be fixers, to get in the trenches, move things forward, answer questions, be that person who's the all-knowing person in our teams. And as leadership has evolved over the years, we need to become more facilitators of other people taking ownership, of instilling accountability, of coaching others, empowering others. And that takes a lot of intention. The skills that it takes to be a leader today are much higher than a few decades ago. Yeah. And so being just a task person isn't going to help you be a successful leader, which is why intention is so important, to be able to focus on the most important elements of leadership and not get stuck in the weeds, which keeps us from being that effective leader.
Well, and I'm having fun. I'm taking notes over here. And you mentioned the word intention. I love that that's my word. That means you've been listening. That's exciting. But that it isn't just about tasks. I think one of the biggest mistakes we make as humans is we don't define success. We just say we want to be successful. And the problem with that is, if I'm defining success as having a lot of money and you're defining success as having a lot of time with your family, both are right.
That's right.
So it's recognizing, and it would be very different to get to your version and my version. And I think we frequently say things without defining them and then wonder why we didn't achieve the thing that we'd set out to achieve. And I'm going to guess you run into that a little bit when you're coaching people. Do you have any magical advice for getting people to set clear intentions?
Yeah, I think you're so right that it's the clarity of that's so important. And, often when I'm coaching leaders, they are focusing their days on the task and they're not clear about their key results. So whether it's in life, it's in your career or what you define in success, or it's what am I doing every day? What are the key result areas of my position? What is the essence of my role that only I can do that someone else on my team can't?
Yeah.
And it's such an important step that most organizations don't teach leaders to take. And in my experience, most people are focused on their job description, which lists 30 things and then other duties as assigned, instead of the 3 to 5 main key results. And one of those, if you're a leader of people, should be coaching and developing each team member to bring out their best performance, to reach goals, and to have a cohesive team.
Yeah.
Yet so many leaders are trying to fit that in amongst all their tasks, and it's holding them back from being successful.
Well, so I have a dear friend who's the CEO for the first time. She's now been a CEO for a full year. It's been a journey for sure. And she does have an executive coach. And that executive coach has done a lot of what you were just saying, getting her to be clear on what are your unique geniuses, because there are a few, and how can you spend the bulk of your day doing that instead of the tasks that you're doing because you rose up through the ranks and you used to do this thing, but you really shouldn't be the one doing that thing now. And so do you have any steps for it? Because not everybody has ever experienced an executive coach and they don't know why that is so valuable. So what is it about having this outside influence that can be so game changing for leaders?
Well, particularly someone who's an executive or leadership coach who understands what it takes to be successful today in today's environment, not 20, 30 years ago. Really think it's that outside advisor, someone to ask you questions and just to help you really process and think through what your goals are, whether it's, again, your personal goals, your professional goals, where you're spending your time. And I really think there's a lot of value also in having something on your calendar a couple of times every month for an hour for yourself, for you and your own space. Most leaders find, time for themselves, whether it's strategizing, planning, thinking, real work is a luxury.
Yeah.
And so having that time a couple times a month with a coach who can really help you to step back and take a breath and say, what's the biggest challenge I'm having right now? And let's talk through how to approach that in a way that's productive and help you see things that maybe aren't in your current awareness can be such a great development opportunity for leaders.
Well, basically, you give people a second set of eyes, a different lens through which they can see all of the things and then pinpoint where to start. Because I know for me, my overwhelm comes when I feel like I have 7 different things and I'm not sure which one should get my attention first.
Yes.
And often once I have figured that out, the other 6 happen really fast, right? It's not like I can't get it all done. It's the starting. It's the take that first step. And I would say that everything you just said is really how to find productive joy. It's that second lens. It's that new perspective that says, hey, let's look at all of this and decide where to start. But I don't want to define productive joy for you because it's my favorite thing in the world to ask people what their definition is. So if you had to define productive joy right now, Laurie, how would you define it?
To me, productive joy is about being intentional with my talents and strengths every day, and also leaving room for joy, whether it's personal and professional as well. So time with my family, feeling like I can enjoy life. I'm one of those people who wants to enjoy life as I go along, not wait till I retire.
Yeah.
One of my personal values is La Dolce Vita. My husband's Italian, so I'm losing Italian. The sweet life of, being joyful all around, having a more holistic life. And I think a lot of leaders are working so many hours at the expense of their personal life. And it doesn't have to be that way. And I've been an example of that. I'm not a perfect human being. I have my days where I feel overwhelmed, but I have core skills and practices that have helped me to be able to be productive so that I can really have that joy in my life.
That's beautiful. It's a great definition. Now, here's the harder question. How do you help people create it?
Yeah, I think some of the practices and principles are understanding what can get in the way is one. And I have 6 leadership saboteurs that are the most common that tend to keep people back from being successful. And so, just as an example, one of those is lack of focus. And to be intentional, some of these practices may not seem like they're, they may seem very foundational, but I think it's the foundational practices that we do every single day that help lead to results. So, for example, if you're feeling overwhelmed, instead of speeding up to catch up, pausing, thinking to yourself, asking yourself a focusing question. What is the most important thing I should be working on right now?
Yeah.
Not the most fun, easy, or task, as you said before, like we can get into those tasks.
Yeah.
In a leadership role, our value is different than when we were in our technical role. And I find that a lot of managers tend to go back to what's comfortable and feels easy. And that's not the value they bring when they're now in a leadership role. That has shifted dramatically.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a tough question for you. When an organization is in crisis, meaning revenue's not coming in, the widget that you make is failing, something is going poorly, what often happens is the leaders tighten up and go into micromanagement mode. We've got to meet 17 times and talk about this problem that we have. And that now eats up all of your day, and you don't have time to execute on the things that you're coming up with in those meetings. How can you help leaders elevate their eyes and not get so, because it's not that things don't have to change.
Yes.
Obviously, if something's not working, something needs to change. But there are productive things you can do, and there are busy things you can do. And sometimes we lean into the busy because it feels like we're doing something,
right?
But that doesn't actually accomplish anything. So wave your wand over that, Laurie.
The magic wand, right? Well, some of it I think is sometimes systematic in the culture of if you're having meetings that aren't effective. Yeah. And, these are just some simple ones, but there's many elements. But, having the meeting because you weren't really clear about what was the goal of this meeting. And now we're coming back and we're not aligned and we're having to have more meetings. So the system of looking at how can we create clarity as a team of what our main goals are for the year and build alignment around it. Many times, a lot of the friction and frustration in companies is there is a lack of alignment. People are working in their silos and they're not communicating, and it's causing a lot more energy and effort to be used unproductively. Yeah. And so, having some systems and structures in place as teams and as a culture can help with that. Go ahead.
No, I want you to keep going.
I was going to say, as an individual leader, some things are out of our control, but a lot is in our control. And so when we look at our day of, what are the top 2 things that I need to work on today that are in my key result areas? And I encourage people to do this before they leave work the day before. Plan your day before you leave the office for the next day. Most of us are leaving in chaos. Our day feels chaotic. We have a lot going on, and now it's probably later than we wanted to leave, and we just leave, and we leave a lot of loose ends. Yeah. And so we bring the anxiety home. Yeah. And we're thinking about work and, I forgot to do this. Whereas if we take these simple practices of wrapping up our day, I call this a recalibration. I think it's a stress reliever. Yeah. Because you're looking at what you got done and what you didn't, even if your day didn't go like you planned. And you're thinking about what are the top 2 things tomorrow, even if my day can start to go off the rails that I can come back to. And then blocking time for, I call them productivity sprints.
Oh, I like that.
Most of us are multitasking, focusing, having interruptions. Our email is open all day. And we need to put core practices in place to help us work at our best. If we're trying to eat healthier, we know don't go out and buy ice cream and cookies and all these things and bring them into your house. Right? We all know that you want to set your environment up to support you in reaching your goals. Yeah. And it's the same thing. If we're trying to really make progress and be productive, we need to set up our environment to support us. Yeah. I personally will go into my basement when I want to work on something that takes a lot of energy and effort, or maybe I don't feel like doing for my productivity sprint. I'll close my email and remove the distractions because I know in my office, too many things are pulling at my attention. And so we have to look at some of these practices that we've talked about in companies like open door policy and, being just available all the time. And
just ping me. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't work. And so how can we create practices that support us to be able to do our best work?
Well, and in an effort to be accessible, leaders do often say, "I'll ping me anytime, it's fine." But that interrupts those at your best moments, and
That's
then
right.
you don't get anything done. I know that, I've just started in the last year or so putting focus time on my calendar. But what I've discovered is if that focus time doesn't have a focus, nothing
That's
happens
right.
during that focus time, right? Like, so I can say focus time, but focus time becomes, we meet then? Oh, sure, just move that time. But you clearly help people go deeper and say, all right, what is it during your productivity sprint that you
That's
want
right.
to accomplish? And let's check that off. Have you ever read the book At Your Best by Carrie Newhoff?
I have not.
You will love it. And I think you do it for the most part already. But he talks about red, yellow, and green zones and how we have different zones in our brains of what we can accomplish and how much more you can accomplish in your green zone than in your red zone, right? Red zone is when you should take a nap or a walk, like that's when you've hit your wall. And if you're trying to do green zone things in your red zone, it takes like 5 times as long. So
Yes.
something that should take you 10 minutes now takes you 50 minutes. We don't have an extra 50 minutes in the day.
That's right.
So it's clear to me that you guide people through all of those things and then some, which means, Laurie, that people are going to want to find you because you're the kind of person we all need in our lives. So what's the best way for our listeners to find you?
Sure. LaurieMaddalena.com is my website, or LinkedIn. Would love to connect with anyone there as well.
Okay, well, guys, you heard it. You need this woman in your life. You need to have somebody who can just help you block your day, help you have those little habits that make such a huge difference because ultimately we're spinning our wheels a lot. And like you said, not everybody is necessarily cut out to be a leader, but those of us that have been given that title by title or by choice really need to step into the role and do it in a way that isn't draining for all of us because that's what happens when we don't do it well, right?
That's right. That's right.
So, Laurie, I think you are just delightful, and I could keep talking to you forever and always. However, people stop listening, and we don't want that. So, would you be willing to answer some rapid fire questions for me?
Sure.
Okay. Well, the first one I think is fun because I want to know what your definition of fun is.
My definition of fun is where I can just really relax and not feel encumbered by responsibilities. Usually that's on vacation for me to be able to really truly disconnect and not have kid things. I have 3 kids and camps and all those other things happening.
So you're doing all that on top of like helping other
Oh,
people get
yes.
their lives ironed out. That makes sense. And with that glass of Cabernet Sauvignon, different. So
That's why I
I've
need
always
that.
been a Sauvignon Blanc drinker. So that's where that mistake came in. But I think both are lovely. Okay. How do you know that you are showing up as your authentic self?
When I feel, well, one, when I feel really rested and energized, I really believe sleep is a underappreciated life
Amen.
skill. And so I'm showing up as my authentic self when I am rested, when I'm in my element, and that is usually working with leaders, leading workshops, speaking.
Yeah, when we're doing what we're made to do, when I'm in that unique genius flow, it's a beautiful thing, right? Like, I'm like, oh, I could do this forever. And then when I'm sitting in a meeting where I feel like my time is being wasted, I am not a pleasant human.
Not as fun.
Oh
Not as
my
fun.
gosh. And when I feel like I could fix it, then I get really annoyed because I know I don't necessarily have the positional authority to fix it. And I'm like, I'd like to fix this. Anyway,
Yeah.
how do you channel your best self on your worst days?
I have a mantra that I repeat to myself often, one day at a time. I don't know if you remember that show.
Yeah.
I remember that show, one day at a time. And so I will say to myself consistently, one day at a time. Like you only have to, don't solve tomorrow's problems today. Focus on today and get through one day at a time.
So much power. That is so well said, Laurie. Thank you. And you, like I said, have been delightful. So, listeners, I need you to be thinking about what you're going to grab because Laurie is getting ready to drop her final wisdom on us. Laurie, by nature, people can only remember one major thing from a 30-minute conversation. So, what's the major idea you want to leave people with today?
The major idea is if you're in a leadership role, to move from fixing things, getting in the trenches, telling people what to do, to facilitating performance. Be more curious, ask more questions, guide people. That will completely elevate your leadership.
Wow. I love that more than you could know because I am a facilitator of learning, right? I'm not a teacher where I feel like I have to say everything for someone to get it. I believe that if you facilitate learning, then the people that are meant to walk away with the information will. So you did that for us today, Laurie, and I'm so grateful that you decided to be on Productive Joy. You were fabulous.
Thanks so much, Dr. Christie. Great to be here.
Yay. And listeners, you've had a lot to choose from today. She said some really beautiful things, whether it's remembering that it's all about setting intentions and that it isn't just about tasks, or that you're leaning into your unique genius a little bit and recognizing that as the leader, you're not supposed to be good at everything. You are supposed to know what you're good at and lean into those things. Or maybe you're just trying to align things a little differently instead of being a hot mess. That's a really good idea. So whatever you're going to grab today, I need you to do something with it because otherwise nothing changes. And I need you today to figure out a way to turn fun into action.